When cruising YouTube recently, I came across this special episode of Jay Leno's Tonight Show, which took place live at the Bull and Finch pub in Boston in 1993, which was part of a send-off celebration for the show Cheers. It sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole about an old favorite sitcom of mine.
How to be it, Chief?
How about an ID?
An ID? That's very flattering. Wait till I tell the missus.
Cheers, of course, took place in a bar with a bunch of regular patrons. Since it aired once a week, I was never clear if the characters were supposed to get together at the bar once a week, say on a Thirsty Thursday, or if they were there every night, which would make them all raging alcoholics. I think it's the latter.
We were talking earlier about my bartending days. There was a guy who used to come into our bar our bar was pretty blue collar, funky place. And this guy he was a banker, and he came in every afternoon as soon as he got off work in his wingtips and his tie, sat in the same place on the bar, and he ordered one beer. He was going to have a beer, and then I'll be on my way. And when we finished that, he was going to have just one more. And he was always there at closing time, having just one more beer. And it was the same, very much like Norm. We would get, every time the phone rang, he'd say, "If that's my wife, I just left."
Bars can be very sad places. Some people spend their whole lives in a bar. Just yesterday, some guy sat right here next to me for 11 hours.
Cheers ran for 11 seasons. I probably discovered it about halfway through, probably around season 5 when the daily repeats started, which gave people an easy way to catch up on the old shows and then get into the new ones. Cheers had an interesting success story in that they finished dead last in the first season, and the only reason they survived the chopping block is because one of the executives liked the show and wanted to keep it around. It slowly built an audience, but it didn't crack the top 10 shows until season 4 or 5. It never became the number 1 show until season 9, which is when most shows are winding down.
I have here the final question. The answer is Diane Chambers.
Diane Chambers. Wait a minute, that's me.
It ended after season 11 because the star, Ted Danson, wanted to move on to other things, not because the ratings were bad. NBC decided to make a big event out of it. This half-hour show got a 2-hour time slot for the finale.
And so this last episode was treated as a big event by NBC.
We wanted to do a half an hour, and the network said, "Yeah, give us an hour." They could sell advertising, so we thought, well, why not? And it's also an extra paycheck for our crew, who were about to be out of work, essentially. And then we got word that Bill Clinton was president at the time, wanted to be in the last Cheers. And it didn't fit at all in the story, of course. So we said, well, let's make it an event. But anyway, that led to another half hour. So here we are at 90 minutes, and then he backed out.
The first 22 minutes, strange amount of time, featured a special called Cheers Last Call, hosted by Bob Costas and other late-night alumni.
The sun is setting, and here at Paramount Studios Stage 25, the crowd is waiting to be let in. We're only minutes away from the final episode of Cheers. Hi, I'm Bob Costas, coming to you from our broadcast booth, not so high above a very familiar locale. Right now, all is quiet, but soon this studio will be packed with people and emotion. Television history is being made here tonight as the cast of Cheers takes the stage for the last time.
Which left the other 98 minutes for the final episode.
And it's all come down to tonight. The last episode of Cheers, a major television milestone. This is the Super Bowl of comedy, with one major exception. We think they'll be laughing in Buffalo.
So the Cheers finale ran from 9 to 11 p.m. And then at 11, some of the local news stations around the country, like in Los Angeles, covered the big event going on live in Boston.
But it was more than the final episode of a famous television show. It was 75,000 people coming here to say goodbye to friends.
I remember being aware that there was a real Cheers bar. Every episode of the show, or most of them, begins with an establishing shot out on the street of the, outside of the real bar, before it goes downstairs, underground, into the bar we see on the show, which is just a studio set in Los Angeles. So I always wondered if the creators of the show had based the show on some real-life experiences they had at that specific bar. It turns out the bar they created for the show, they pretty much created from scratch, just out of their own imagination. The real-life bar, the Bull and Finch pub in Boston, was something they more or less picked at random. They said out of a phone book.
I'd never been to Boston when we decided to set it there. So I immediately went and said, yeah, this is the right place. I think probably too much is made of the fact that there's a bar in Boston that we use for our exteriors. is called the Bull and Finch. I don't think that, I mean, it's probably still officially called that, but Cheers now dominates it. But it was what we liked about that bar. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a step-down bar. You step down from the street, and we duplicated that on our set. But our bar is quite a bit larger than that one. That's kind of tiny, in fact. We went to the bar. Obviously, we visited. They had locals there who have now been displaced because of all the attention that it gets. It's kind of a tourist attraction now. And we felt somewhat upset that we'd driven them out.
Even though the show and the real-life bar had little in common, it didn't stop the Bull and Finch from becoming a popular tourist landmark. Even though the show was a creation of a bunch of Los Angeles writers, real Bostonians embraced the bar and the show. Many real-life Boston celebrities would guest star on the show, and many were on hand for the final celebration. May 20th, 1993 was the day the final episode of Cheers aired. The city of Boston decided to make a big deal out of it. The Boston Globe published a schedule of events for the day. The cast and creators of the show appeared before the local legislature.
This was officially proclaimed, and rightfully so, Cheers Day in Massachusetts by Governor Weld. It's not every day that Senate President Bulger gives up his gavel voluntarily.
A party was held at the Hampshire House restaurant where the cast and a few hundred others viewed the finale on a big screen.
The Hampshire House party was filled with Boston natives, visitors from Hollywood, and media from across the nation. Everyone came together here in Boston to watch a bit of television history and mingle with the stars.
The cast and Jimmy and I were upstairs in a room in the dining room upstairs at the Hampshire House, and we had dinner there and watched television, and drinks were served.
Where were you during that live event that they had?
Oh, I was drunk somewhere.
I want to show this picture, first of all, of you guys watching the finale, the Cheers finale, which was when television was different at that time. There you guys are in a hotel room around the world's smallest table. Oh, I think we have it on the big screen now. Here it is. There's everybody. There's the cast of Cheers, or most of the cast of Cheers. And you right there with the... how many people watched that finale?
86 million.
86 million people were tuned in.
Apparently there were also screens put up in Boston Common, I guess in the park, for public viewing of the finale. But most people around the country held viewing parties at home.
To give you an idea of how many people in our city were watching Cheers, the LAPD says there should be a Cheers finale on every night as far as they're concerned, judging by how quiet the streets have been tonight.
So now the stage is set in Boston. NBC had asked Jay to have some of the cast of Cheers on The Tonight Show in the weeks leading up to the finale. But Jay had a better idea. Why not do a live remote Tonight Show from Boston, from the Bull and Finch pub with the entire cast of Cheers? Looks like they had to close down Beacon Street to erect the stadium seating.
Above me, I don't know if you can see, but the cast has just put their at the window, and that's why the crowd is going absolutely mad, because the cast has come out, and just to wave at these people who've been out here all day and all night, they're going crazy. It's like New Year's down here.
When Cheers' final episode, it was an enormous television event, landmark event, and there was something about a live. You guys were all in Boston.
Boston at the bar, outside,
right. And then everybody was going to be on The Tonight Show after the final episode of Cheers.
Exactly.
And it was a hugely popular, I mean, everybody was watching. What do you remember about that night?
Very little, and I'll tell you why. They brought us to the bar to do press, and after being apart for like 6 months, the show had been over, and we were all getting to see each other again after 6 months, and they brought us to the bar about 5 or 6 hours early. So we were hammered, beyond belief.
Wow.
The show starts with Leno in front of the pub delivering a monologue to the audience.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see everybody. We're all here to celebrate, of course, the final episode of Cheers. As you know, to the folks at NBC, Cheers is not just a TV show. It's all we've got, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. It's all we've got. And coincidentally, in Washington, the Clinton administration is officially 4 months old today. I think they're getting ready for their final episode too. Yeah. Oh boy.
He then goes inside the bar for a rather long segment where he's introduced to various local celebrities by Bob Costas.
Wade Boggs. Hi, you guys. How are you? Bob Costas.
Jay, how are you?
Bob always manages to wheedle his way into everybody else's show. No, weren't you just doing this in L.A.?
They swiped 8 minutes from me because the last episode ran over, and they said they'd make it up to me at the back end. So here I am.
All right, well, this is the back end. Let's take a walk with me.
All right.
And again, any of the baseball guys, I want you to feel at home, so feel free to scratch or touch yourselves. It's no problem, okay? Thank you very much. Oh, hello, Senator. Senator Kerry, how are you?
Welcome home.
Nice to see you. It'd be nice to walk into a bar once and not go, oh, hello, Senator. Hey, but seriously, seeing a senator in a bar, what are the odds of that, ladies and gentlemen?
The segment ends with Jay apologizing to members of the Kennedy family for all the jokes over the years.
I think the Kennedys are sitting right over there. And I've done so many jokes about the Kennedys, I feel kind of guilty. I'll go over and say hello and see if they're mad at me or something. Yeah.
Jay, don't feel embarrassed at all. Of course there's no hard feelings. We have a little surprise for you.
You do?
And they end up tricking him into going through a door that locks him outside in a back alley. There he runs into Stephen Wright.
Now, what is your connection with Cheers?
Well, when I was a college student down the street here, I used to park cars here.
For real, or are you just saying? Really?
No, serious.
Yeah.
That was about 15 years ago.
15 years ago. So what brings you back
Well,
now?
I feel guilty about these cars, so I have these keys from that time.
Finally, Jay joins the cast, who are all pretty intoxicated at this point, as one might expect from this sort of event.
Here's another one from the audience. Has anyone on the show ever had a crush on another cast member?
All of us. Ooh, baby. Oh,
We've all had a crush on Rhea. And now, it would seem to be awful one-sided.
Ask George and Rhea about Seattle.
George, about Seattle? Tell us about Seattle.
Well, it was a torrid affair. I mean,
It just happened in Seattle? Now, why Seattle?
It was magic.
Talk about it.
All right, damn it.
Talk about it.
Can I get you all another drink?
Jay Leno hadn't looked up and really seen us, and he was going over notes, and they go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he looks up, and it's like, oh dear God, I have 90 minutes with these clowns.
Everybody's drunk.
Yeah, really drunk.
Yeah.
You don't like to say something to Kirsty? All right, Kirsty.
Wait.
Kirsty, you are my best friend, but we all need to say this to you.
Yes.
You're stupid! Stupid!
Yes, these are some of the highest paid actors in television, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, this is going to be a really strange Tonight Show.
He returns to the street where he plays a little game with Branford Marsalis and Ed Hall.
Cheers! Woody is known as the dumbest guy to come out of Indiana. After Cheers, title reverts back to Dan Quayle.
Apparently, the sketch with Marsalis and Hall was originally planned for Cliff and Norm. When it's a live show and people show up drunk, you have to quickly rearrange the tables, Leno said. Then he tries to play a trivia game with a couple of audience members versus cast members, which doesn't go too well.
What special name did Rebecca have for Robin's new girlfriend?
That's hard.
Beer
That's really
isn't
hard.
a good answer for that. Beer isn't a good answer for that.
What is
It could be something with like beer in it.
Frog slut.
What is it?
Frog slut.
Frog slut is correct. Unfortunately, you lose points for turning off your own cards. I'm sorry. You're back to one. I'm sorry. You don't fool with the judges.
We were all drunk. I mean, it was 11 years of love, and it was fortunate for Tonight Show, but it was we were having a good time.
Finally, the cast joins the songwriters for a rousing rendition of the classic Cheers theme song.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came.
I have to imagine it was a pretty big night for NBC, and I think it all went pretty well, but the Tonight Show capper is seen as a low point of the whole affair. Critic Tom Shales said the Tonight Show remote was a debacle that besoiled the memory of Cheers. Ted Danson appeared on The Tonight Show 2 weeks later to apologize for the cast's behavior. Kelsey Grammer, on the other hand, defended the cast, saying I was not sloshed. In fact, most of the cast was not sloshed. They'd had a few drinks. What they were doing was playing at the end of a decade, and I think you ought to allow them a little dignity and a little fun, that's all. The Bull and Finch pub has since been renamed Cheers, and they've even added a second location that more closely resembles the show.
The original bar that inspired the hit 80s sitcom Cheers is located on Beacon Hill, but they found so much success that they opened up a second location here in Faneuil Hall. The bar is an exact replica of the Hollywood set in which Cheers was filmed.
Tonight is last call for Cheers in Boston, one location anyway, the one outside Faneuil Hall, closing for good tonight. The owners say the coronavirus pandemic and a lack of assistance from the marketplace's landlord played a role in making that decision to close. Cheers' location on Beacon Street, however, where the iconic TV series is based, will remain open.
As for the TV show Cheers, you can see it on streaming, and it hasn't been rebooted yet. But if you want to watch these specials, The Last Call, The Tonight Show, all the news clips I found, as far as I know, they haven't been released anywhere. I would think The Last Call at least would make a good DVD special feature, but as far as I know, hasn't been released. But for now, at least, they can all be found right here on YouTube, which is the nice thing about YouTube. Cheers.
Now I've got nowhere else to go. Someone help me, I'm in pain. Syndication's not the same. I stuck with you until the end. My friends think I'm insane. Now I'm gonna drink till I forget your name.